In olden days, a glimpse of stocking was looked on as something shocking. Now heaven knows, yeah, anything goes. Scandal and the occult. Very, very interesting topic, and it does not get enough notoriety. Why? Because no one really thinks about it, but you think about how scandal creates a magical charge that actually can change people's lives in the most incredible way, launch them from mediocrity or obscurity all the way into something like legendary status. Monica Lewinsky being a classic example. She tours the world today, making a fortune talking about Bill Clinton's ejaculation on her suit. This is the power of that. And she also had two things there. She saved herself from being ritually sacrificed by the Clinton murder machine by actually holding on to the dress with that wonderful feminist Bill Clinton's ejaculation all over it. Again, I mean, I don't care about people's private lives, but when he was starting to slag off Donald Trump, we really got an insight into what he's actually like. Hypocrisy being a tremendous marker of a psychopathic mind. Now, sanctimonious hypocrisy, I might add. Now, scandal and the occult. First came to mind in my life when I read Kenneth Anger's magnificent book, Hollywood Babble On. Somewhere there on the shelf. Highly recommended. Now, Kenneth Anger, actually, people have asked me, can you tell us all about your books? This is only about, this shelf goes on the floor to see about 5%. All the others are packed away in plastic IKEA boxes in the garage because my roof fell up. My roof was damaged in a fall last year and there was all water coming in, so to protect them, and it's still a problem for protecting them from water damage until this is completely sorted, they're out there. But when that's done, I will do a proper tour of my enormous, even though I say so myself, occult and 40th library. Now, yeah, so Hollywood Babble On. You see, what was good about that is that book demonstrated how it's a risky form of magic. I'll tell you an example. And even though it's not deliberate, it's a passive occultism, how it can be. Fatty Arbuckle, when he killed Virginia Wade with his penis, it destroyed his career. He was the biggest star in silent movies. And Virginia Wade died as a result of a botched abortion, not because he was high on drugs and had rough sex with her. It was just an unfortunate thing that happened. He was the wrong penis at the wrong time, and the poor woman died. Virginia Wade died of septicemia during a sex romp in a hotel in San Francisco. Now, he was acquitted 3 times, and you know, and I've read well into that case, and you cannot say he was acquitted because he was a celebrity, even though in the 3rd and final case, where it almost seems like the jury were starstruck by Fatty Arbuckle, that they all went up to, at the end, Roscoe Arbuckle was his full name, and shook his hand and had photographs taken with him, but they genuinely felt that the man had been railroaded and his career had been destroyed by this sex that went wrong and the poor woman died. Now, that's when it went too far. So it made him very, very famous, but for the wrong reasons. It'd be like Liam Neeson and the comment that was completely taken out of context, that they said he was racist. That was that's again, that could have been in another time. That could have been the right way. Suppose in the age of say Dirty Harry movies of the late 70s, and Harry Callahan, right, was a big cult hero. If Liam Neeson had said it then, his reputation went through the roof, in all the positive waves. It's because, you see, sorcery, and I'm always telling you this, it's like paganism and Hinduism. It is a reflection of the current cultural paradigm, and you've got to work within the limitations of that cultural paradigm in order to be successful within it. You're not, we're mortals, remember that. And we're mortals, we're subject to the fates and whims of, social coups. Now, there's lots of ways, there's countless numbers of stories of people who've had scandals that have made them very famous and rich. They were minor TV stars, minor film stars, minor pop stars, and a scandal came along and suddenly they were multi-millionaire legends, and they built their charisma upon the scandal. Again, it depends on the zeitgeist of the era, what you can get away with. And there's also ways it's been done deliberately, and I'm going to give you some examples. Our good friends the Masons did very well with Dan Brown and Michael Bijant when they had that lawsuit saying that the Da Vinci Code had plagiarized Holy Blood, Holy Grail. The reality is the Holy Blood, Holy Grail is a fantastic read, although it's probably mostly fiction, but it still opened up people's minds to things like the Templars and what was going on in the Cathars and these kind of ideas of bloodlines and, you know, all that kind of thing, King Clovis and all the other things. And it was a great, fantastic read in the day. The Dan Brown didn't really plagiarize it because they're both kind of fiction in their own kind of way, you know, based on historical fact. And they went to sue each other. What did that result in? Both of them getting rich, because everyone that was read the Da Vinci Code would want to run out then and read Holy Blood, Holy Grail. And even though Bijant lost the case, I believe, what does it matter? He probably sold millions of extra books. And so, you see, that was deliberately done. I'll give you another example. And this is a dodgy one. Probably, I could be wrong here, but when Salman Rushdie first came about in the early 90s, was it like, yeah, early 90s, and that book, the Satanic Verses, came out, he had a fatwa issued upon them, we're told this, by some cleric in Iran, I believe, meaning that he was to be killed for writing this book, which just insulted the Prophet, insulted Islam, the usual story. Now, what's interesting about this one is, did that really happen? Did that really happen? Remember, have you ever read any Salman Rushdie book? I've read the Satanic Verses and I've read other books by him, and guess what? He's not a particularly good writer. He's kind of in the Anne Rice kind of end of the scale. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. Not everybody should be a Dostoevsky or a Proust, but he's in that scale of mainstream blah 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 writing. Suddenly he's the world's #1 hero. Very good for American, what you call, like, propaganda at the time, who was in a big stand down with Iran, and they showed lots of shots of fellas going all this kind of thing in Iran, you know, wanting the Prophet must be avenged, all those motherfuckers, right? And then next thing, a mediocre writer is suddenly top of the New York Times bestseller list, and to this day he travels the world as some kind of god, right? Some kind of god, and he gets all kinds of awards from universities, and he'll have his arse wiped for the rest of his life. The rest of his life, even though, based on what? The fact that he could have died because he wrote a book. Now, what makes me think the fatwa thing was probably invented by the publishing company or by his agent is, firstly, it's very hard to really verify this stuff. Maybe a minor Islamic cleric said he should have his balls chopped off or something like that, and then you had that Egypt Cat Stevens, whatever his name is now, I don't know, Muhammad McGinty or whatever his name is now, going, he must have his entrails removed and fed to the Prophet, whatever he said on 60 Minutes. And your man Cat Stevens, maybe a nice fella, but he's just a classic example of one of these morons who just jumps from one religion to the next. He's another Sinead O'Connor. He's Sinead O'Connor with a penis. But I have to say, I do like his early records. Now, so, yes, so the fatwa was on, and then we're all hearing that, oh, poor, he's hiding out in Bono's house. Oh, he's hiding out. Like, you're hiding out from a fatwa. Where do you hide? In the house of the most famous celebrity on the world? You see, it's kind of iffy, innit? Right? Let's go a bit further than that. Suddenly, we hear the fatwa was dropped and Salman Rushdie has been forgiven. So, a fatwa is for life. According to the Quran and the strict following of it, which is the only following of it, if you insult the Prophet, you die. So the fatwa was put on him for that reason, and then removed? I don't think there was a fatwa. I think the whole thing was probably invented by his management or by his publishers to boost the sales of the Satanic Verses, and that itself is an act of sorcery. that itself is an act of magic, because they use the emotional charge of the people who go, I gotta buy his book to protect freedom of speech, this kind of thing, and American, knowing this zeitgeist of the American-Iranian relationships at the time in that era, it was a handy propaganda tool. It's like, look, see them Arabs, even though the Persians are not Arabs. Eat those Arabs, they want to kill a man for writing a book. This kind of thing. A lot of that kind of shit went down at the time. But who was the ultimate winner in all that? Salman Rushdie's mediocre writing. And that's a way you can actually use scandal or controversial mancy, Scandalmancy. I just made that up. That's pretty good. Or controversial mancy. Make that up. But yeah. How many things have we seen like that? Edward Bernays built the whole... His stuff was really basically sorcery. And that was all... Look at the world he built on the idea of a scandal. You can get something. Now, of course, as I said, it can go the wrong way. It can go too far. And your scandal can actually destroy you. So the thing is that basically you're safe if you are straight or gay and you're just doing normal human sex with adults. You're pretty much safe. Even if you're like someone like Charlie Sheen, he still tours the world. No one, you know, what's the old joke that, you know, every 2.5 men have AIDS. I mean, many women has he infected. I know it's not a laughing matter, but no one seems to care. We live in a world where women are spellbound by this. They will still want to shag him because he's Charlie Sheen, and the controversy is more powerful for that reason. And that's how you see. This is the whole thing. Like, Thomas, I want to learn magic. And I go, yeah, what do you want to learn? What should I do the rites of Elusive at 4 a.m. under a third moon of April, while, you know, chickens are giving birth to, you know... Man, magic is not like that at all. Yes, that's one kind of magic, just like a Wagner opera is one kind of music, but, you know, ska's another kind of music, punk rock's another kind of music, jazz is another kind of music, skittle's another kind of music, bluegrass is another kind of music. Magic, being an art, works exactly the same way. You want to put on a Wagnerian opera type ritual, or do you want to put on something that's a bit more basic and in your face? Think of the Sex Pistols on the Bill Grundy show. You know, you dirty rotter. What did he say? You dirty rotter. And that was, you know, you dirty old man. You know, shit. With Susie Sue behind Mick Jones. It was perfect. It launched that band into, you know, legendary status, and people who never heard. Next morning, the Sun newspaper, the filth and the fury, and suddenly they were superstars all over the UK, and then it became the whole world. And see, that worked for them. That scandal worked. This kind of scandalmancy. But I tell you something, it seems to work when it's less programmed, when it's more. I mean, there's a very good film from the 90s or 80s called Hollywood Confidential. I think it's from the 90s, and it kind of deals around that aspect of scandal and stuff in Hollywood. And again, it works. A bit too much can destroy you. So it's sort of like summoning a demon when you think about it. You know, you're summoning demons that you'll deal with them for so much. And then you might summon Choronzon, and you'd end up like Pope Sylvester II and being torn to bits on the altar. Because narcissism becomes very powerful in magic and sorcery, just like it does in show business. It's, you know, and, you know, it's been going on forever. David Bowie, Jacques Brel, you name it, they've all used it. I mean, what's his name? Freddie Mercury. Like, Freddie Mercury back in the day, I can remember my mother saying, what band? You like that band, Queen? And I go, yeah, they're a bunch of queers. That's what she said, right? Right. When Freddie Mercury dies, and he's suddenly, a few years later, he's suddenly being selfish, she goes, "Oh, I love Freddie. He's my favourite." And that was because the media had completely controlled her to think in both directions. At the time she said that, queers were you know, gays were kind of underground and hidden, especially in Ireland. And you know, I'll tell you a funny story. I know I'm going off tangent. When I was working on a building site when I first arrived in New York, on a construction site, and I was like, just general, I was labouring. No, actually, yeah, it was before I became a house painter. And there was this fella from Tipperary, and he goes to me, "You know your man." Who? Your man. Your man. From the Rolling Stones. You know your man. I know my accent's going all over the place. From the Rolling Stones. And I go, "Yeah." "Which one?" "Your man. The queer. The queer." I'm going, "What queer?" He goes, "Mick Jagger. Mick Jagger, the queer." He goes, "Yeah." I go, "Yeah." "You know he injects himself." I go, "What?" He injects himself with cannabis. Yeah, this fucker with like fingers that were like fucking sausages suffering from septic poisoning, had an eyebrow that went from here to here, was probably only good for shoveling cement and drinking pints, and his worldview was probably no further than the gap between his inbred eyeballs that were basically on the side of his head, and yet he knew about Mick Jagger. He heard of Mick Jagger. And why did he hear of Mick Jagger? Controversy. 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 Controversy.